Hello, my name is David, and I'm going to be doing this lecture series on cued speech. To preface this a little bit, I am not certified as an instructor of cued speech through the NCSA. I'm teaching this with my 9 years of experience as a cued language transliterator, as well as using my Bachelor's of Science in American Sign Language Interpreting and my master's degree in deaf education to kind of guide myself through teaching cued speech to you all. And the reason why I wanted to create this lecture series is to really make it so cued speech is more accessible to everyone. This is a free course. It's going to go through everything from the history and the basics to more complex things that cued speech proficiency requires. So that is why I wanted to create this lecture series, is really for accessibility. And I feel like it's part of my role as a hearing person who is a part of the cued speech community to take the time to do things pro bono or for free so that everyone can access cued speech. There is no time that you need to be available to watch these videos, and there's no financial aspect to this. Because I think that requiring people to pay to get into something is a hurdle that a lot of people can't get over. So it really limits who has access to cued speech, and I kind of want to mitigate that, and I want to take some barriers down, at least financial wise, and when it comes to how much time people need to take out of their schedules to, go to a course, fly to a course, pay for a course. I kind of want to mitigate all of that by creating these free resources for everyone online. So to get into it about this course is designed to teach you the basics of cued American English at your own pace. The slides are broken into 33 lessons, and some lessons are more dense than others. I will also be doing more than one lesson per video. There are cue-ins interspersed throughout the slides, and you should be able to accurately, with speed not mattering, cue the phrases or words before you move on through the next lesson. About two slides after each cue-in will be a review for that cue-in, and that'll make sense once we work through the slides a little more. There are activities within the slides as well. For each activity, I will show you a list of words or phrases for you to cue. When I show that, I want you to pause the screen so that you have time to cue it all. And then after you unpause it, I'm going to go through the list and show you how to cue all the words or phrases. There is reference to ASL throughout the presentation as well. If you're not a signer, you may still find those topics of interest to you. I just threw those in because a lot of cuers are also signers. So I wanted to make sure that I had a more holistic approach to this than just with cued speech. So lesson one. Lesson one is going to focus on an overview of the course, and it's going to focus on the history, the why, the who, the where, the what of cued speech. And next lesson, we'll begin learning the actual system with one handshape and two placements. So the overview and the history, the WH questions answered. So CAE is how I will often abbreviate cued American English. Cued speech was developed in 1966 by Dr. R. Orrin Cornett at Gallaudet University. He was a physicist, a professor, and an administrator. And he created cued speech as a literacy tool to address the low reading skills of college-age deaf persons. And he really created this as a tool of literacy. I think it's really grown past what he thought that it would grow into. He didn't think that deaf cuers would be cueing into adulthood, but there are countless examples of adult deaf cuers who prefer cued speech as their mode of communication. So I think it's really grown into something more than what he anticipated. So what is cued speech? Cued speech is a system of communication that uses 8 hand shapes and 4 locations near the mouth. The 8 hand shapes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And the 4 locations are mouth, chin, throat, and side. And those 8 hand shapes and 4 locations, in conjunction with the information visible on the mouth when we speak, make spoken language 100% visually accessible. And I like to show this business card because you'll see them a lot at different cueing events. And if you take a cued speech course or you go somewhere to learn cued speech, they'll often have these business cards that have the entire system on them. And I think that really exemplifies that cued speech is a closed system. It's not a language that's still growing and changing and evolving and creating new words and things like that. Once you learn the whole system, you can cue anything from any domain of English. You could talk about your house, your home, shopping, going on vacation. Anything you can say, you can cue once you learn all 8 hand shapes and all of the locations. So 4 quick facts about cued speech. It is a phonemically based system of English, which just means it's based in sounds. It's not based in letters. It's not based in meaning. It's based in just how words sound. Number 2, it provides access to spoken language just visually. 3, it's more than just speech or lip reading. Like I said with the previous slide, it is a means of providing access using the cues and the information that's available on the mouth. So what I mean by that is if you look at the sounds p and b, they look the exact same on the mouth. So if you're just doing lip reading or speech reading, that sound might be really hard to differentiate even in context. So when we cue those sounds, they have different hand shapes to show that they're different sounds being made. So it's and but. So if I say pat and bat, from just a lip reading perspective, you might not be able to differentiate those words. But when I cue pat and bat, the difference is obvious visually. And then the last thing I have here is that cuers do not need any hearing in order to be able to learn cued speech or effectively use cued speech. I think people often think that because it's based in sound, cuers need residual hearing, but that's not the case. A person could be profoundly deaf and still be able to use cued speech effectively. Some research about cued American English. I'm going to talk about 3 things here. And I will also put a link down below for a literature review that is pretty recent. I believe it's from 2018 that talks about a lot of the literature that's been published about cued speech. So the first one here, Lasasso and others in 2003, they found that deaf cuers spell like their hearing peers. And by that, their example, I believe, in their article is the word blue. A hearing child may hear that word and spell it B-L-O-O, and a deaf cuer is also going to be making mistakes similar to that because the cue, blue, provides that information that it's an oo sound, and they may know that oo is made by O-O. So they may very well also write B-L-O-O. The next one is also Lasasso, but this time with Crane, again in 2003. And here they found that deaf cuers understand rhyming like their hearing peers do. And then the last one on this slide, Libert and others from 1988 to 1996, they found that deaf cuers score similarly to their hearing peers on tasks of phonemic awareness, so awareness of what sounds sound like in English and what letters correspond to sounds, decoding, which is how we sound out words, phonics, and spelling. So applications for cued speech go beyond just with deaf people. It can be used for autism spectrum disorder, auditory processing disorder, apraxia, aphasia, and dyspraxia, sound hypersensitivity, as well as foreign language learning. And this is the logo for the National Cued Speech Association, which I will also put a link to their website down below. They're an association focused on advocacy and education about cued speech. Not so much about transliterators, not so much about becoming a transliterator or learning the cued speech system, but more about advocating for people and their right to access. So I've talked a little bit so far about phonemes and phonetics and phonemics and how cued speech is based in sound. So we're going to kind of work a little bit on that, and we're going to talk about phonemes in English, and then we're going to talk about phonemes in ASL. So phonemes in English are the smallest units of sounds that we have in a language. So 2 examples I have on this slide are the word cats. Cats has 4 phonemes. K, A, T, S. cheese has 3. Ch, E, Z. So you can see that the phonemes don't necessarily correspond to the number of letters in a word. And cued speech is not only phonetically based, but it's also based in syllables or consonant vowel pairs. So if I were to cue the word cats, I would break that up into cats, because there's no vowel with t and s. So I would cue it cats. Cheese, I would cue cheese, cheese. And that's just a little sample about what cued speech looks like and how we break words up when we're trying to learn how to cue them. Now, to switch gears into ASL, we're going to talk about the phonemes of ASL, which are known as the 5 parameters. And those 5 parameters are hand shape, movement, location, palm orientation, and non-manual signals. And the non-manual signals are like body shift, eye gaze, mouth morphemes. Those are non-manual signals. So those 5 parameters make up the phonemes of American Sign Language. Now we're going to talk a little bit about cueing posture. And basically that means how you should be cueing, what your body should be looking like while you're cueing. So that way your cues are more accurate, and so you don't get a repetitive stress or a repetitive strain injury if you're cueing all the time. So first we want to have a straight back. We want our arm to be between 10 and 45. We don't want our arm to be straight up and down, and we don't want it to be so high up like this. We want it to be between 10 and 45 degrees. I cue at about this angle right here. We want to pivot from the shoulder, not from the wrist. So we're not moving our wrist around like this while we're cueing. We want to emphasize a straight wrist, and not only a straight wrist, but a straight arm from the tips of our fingers to our elbow. We don't want our wrist like this. We don't want it like this. We want it nice and straight, and we want our arm nice and straight. The next one is no obscuring of the lips. So the first placement that we're going to learn for vowels is at the mouth, and that placement is right here. It's right at the corner of the mouth. But what we don't want to do is move our hand so much that it blocks our mouth, because cueing, to cue read, relies on knowing the hand shape or recognizing the hand shape and the information available on the mouth. So if we block our mouths, cueing becomes inaccessible. And then the last thing on the list is making sure that our hand movement and our lips are synchronized. So if you cue a sound with your hand, it needs to be cued at the same time that your mouth is also making the movement for that sound. So for example, if I were to cue the word me, which is just one consonant and one vowel, so you would break that word up as me, you would cue it as me, because this is the E sound and this hand shape represents the sound. So when I cue me, I have to cue it like this, me. I can't cue it like this, me, or like this, me. You have to make sure that the hand shape and the placement are happening at the same time that those sounds are happening on your mouth. And that might sound a little confusing, but you'll understand that right when we get into learning the system, which is what we're going to do right now. So in lesson 2, we're going to learn about hand shape 5, the side consonant, and the mouth position. So for hand shape 5, it represents the sounds and t. And notice how I didn't say M, F, and T, because we want to focus on the sounds, not the letters. So this hand shape represents and t. This hand shape, you're going to have all 4 of your fingers together. You don't want them splayed. You want them together. And you want to have your thumb out and visible. We don't want our thumb tucked behind, because this is actually hand shape 4. So we want to make sure that our thumb is nice and visible. And then for cue notation, it's the number 5 because it's hand shape 5. And I'll explain a little bit more about cue notation, and we'll get some practice in with that in this lesson as well. The first consonant placement we're going to learn is here. This placement, I said consonant placement. It's really just a placement where you have a consonant with no vowel. it's called side placement or side position. And here you're going to cue things that don't have a consonant directly after them. So, for example, we know that this hand shape is f, and t. So, if I want to cue the sound that has no vowels in it. So it's not going to go to a placement that has vowel sounds. It's going to stay right at the side. Or we could cue, if we're sounding out a word with a child, we could say, what sound does F make? And we show that that sound doesn't have any vowels with it. So for the side consonant, you want to make sure that your placement is very, I'm sorry, I said it again. With the side placement, you want to make sure that your placement is always consistent. It's going to be about 4 inches from the center of your chin, and it's going to be level with your chin. So it's not going to be way out here, and it's not going to be up here or down here. I always do this when I show people where it is because I think it can help them when they are doing it themselves. Because if you're not looking at a camera like I am right now, it can be hard to tell. So you want it to be about 4 inches from the center of your chin and parallel or level with your chin. And consistency is really important when we're doing our side placement. And the cue notation for this placement is S for side. Which again, don't stress too much about that. We're going to go into that a little bit more later. And then the last thing that we're going to learn in this lesson is the mouth placement. The mouth placement makes 2 different sounds, and they are E and they are Er. So you may have noticed now that handshape 5 has 3 sounds, and the mouth placement has 2. And the reason for that is the 3 sounds on the 5 hand shape and the 2 sounds that are on the mouth placement look differently on the mouth, which is why it's so important we don't block our mouth. So these can all have the same hand shape because they look different. You can tell now just by looking at my mouth what sound I am trying to say, but I'm not voicing it. You can see that those all look so different on my mouth, and that's what allows all those sounds to be on one hand shape. And the same thing goes with our mouth placement. We have E, which my mouth is flat, and we have where my mouth is rounded. So that's why we can have 2 sounds in this placement. So for the mouth placement, we're going to place our longest finger. So right now, we only have one hand shape. So our longest finger that we can place here is our middle finger. So we're going to place our middle finger right at the corner of our mouth. And again, we're not blocking our lips. And the cue notation for this placement is M for mouth. So now we're going to go ahead and cue some words. I'm going to model them, and I want you to cue them as I'm cueing them. So our first word we have here in our little chart is meat. To separate that word into its consonant vowel pairings, I'm going to first separate me, the M and the E go together, me, and then it's followed by a T with no vowel after it. So for that, we're going to start with handshape 5 at the mouth, me, and then we're going to go to the side placement for the T, meat. Meat. And you can see in the cue notation that I have written below the word meat that the cue notation is 5M, 5S. And that's just to show people if we don't have access to a video or we're not in person, if someone asks, how do I cue the word meat? I could type and say 5M, 5S. And that represents handshape 5 at the mouth, handshape 5 at the side. Meat. So now the word fee. Fee. It's f plus E, fee. Fee. We're going to start right at the mouth. So that cue notation, as you can see, is just 5M. Fee. The next word is T. T. You can see that T and fee are cued the same. And they're allowed to be cued the same because they look differently on my mouth. See if you can tell which one I'm cueing now. That was fee. And you can tell because my lip was touching the bottom of my teeth. Fee. The F sound in English is known as a labiodental because my lip is touching my tooth. Fee. But if I cue the word, that looks different than the word on my mouth, even though the cues are the same. So T also has the same cue notation, which is 5M. Now we're going to use the sound. And you can hear that the R sound, that is kind of built into that vowel. So for the word Murphy, we're going to cue it as 5M for mur, and then fee. Mur-fee. So that's going to look like this. Murphy. We're going to just tap our hand on that same placement to show that it's a new syllable. So Murphy. And that word has the cue notation of 5M, 5M, because it's hand shape 5 at the mouth, and then hand shape 5 at the mouth again. Murphy. Now for the word fur. Fur is going to have the same cue notation as fee and T because it's cued the exact same way. Fur, just with hand shape 5 at the mouth. And the reason is because the E and the look different on my mouth, so they can have the same cues. Fur, fee, T all look different on my mouth, so they can have the same cues. And then finally, the last word on our list is turf. That word is going to be broken up as tur. So it's going to be cued as turf, turf. And that cue notation is going to be 5M, 5S to represent hand shape 5 at the mouth and then hand shape 5 at the side. Turf. So here's a bunch more words that we can cue now that we're going to cue together. So we have me with the cue notation 5M. What is that going to look like? Me. What about meat? We can split that word up as me and t. So it's going to be meat. Then we have myrrh. Myrrh. Myrrh is going to be myrrh. For is going to be And the reason is because this hand shape not only represents the sounds and t, but it also represents just plain vowels with no consonants attached to them. So we can cue E, and that's going to use the same hand shape as and t, because it also represents no consonant sound with a vowel. So if we were to cue E and we would cue E and Number 5, feet is feet. The letter T, or it could be tea the drink, or it could be a golf tee. Those are all cued the same way. It's going to be T. Number 7 is feet. Feet. Firm. Firm. Number 9 is turf. Turf. Number 10 is fee. Fee. Number 11 is team. And number 12 is fur. Fur. So now we're going to cue a list activity. I'm going to show a list of words, and I want you to pause it when I show it, and then I want you to cue those words on that list, and then when you unpause it, we'll go through it together. So go ahead and pause now. Let's go through all those sounds together. Number 1 is me. 2 is me. 3 is meat. 4 is mer. 5 is 6 is feet. 7 is tea. 8 is feet. 9 is firm. 10 is turf. And 11 is fee. So now that we've gone through that list, we're going to start with lesson 3. And in lesson 3, we're going to learn handshape 3. Handshape 3 represents the sounds r, and s. And I use the word horse to remember that, because this handshape has all of the sounds, all of the consonant sounds in the word horse. R, s. We're also going to talk about adding a new vowel to our mouth placement, which is the ear sound. Ear. And we're also going to have a brief discussion about liaisons, or what we call running speech or connected speech, which is really exemplary of how we really speak when we're talking quickly or talking casually. So, this is handshape 3. Our 3 fingers here are going to be touching in together. Again, we don't want them flayed apart. We want them together. And if I flip my hand around, you can see it's kind of like an F in American Sign Language, but instead of our hand being flayed, we're going to close it all together and flip our palm orientation. This is handshape 3, and it's Q notation 3. So now for some review, what are the sounds of the mouth placement? Here. What is the sound that I'm cueing now? And what about now? Those are E and they're Because remember, we use handshape 5 when we're cueing vowels that don't have any consonants. E and are the 2 vowels of the mouth placement. And what are the sounds that handshape 5 represents? And t. And t. So the mouth placement actually has a third sound associated with it, but we couldn't cue it in our first lesson because we needed handshape 3 to be able to cue it. And this sound is ear. Ear. And to cue the word ear, like my ear, we're going to cue it as ear. So it's going to be handshape 5 at the mouth to handshape 3 at the side. Ear, ear. And we don't want to change our handshape once we're already at the position. We don't want to go ear, because that looks like when we have that handshape 5 at the side, that looks like there's another consonant before our handshape 3. So we want to change before we arrive at the side placement. Ear, ear. Do you see how I'm changing right about when I get there? Not after I arrive, but maybe just before I get there, I'm changing to handshape 3. So if we cue just ear, we're going to use handshape 5 at the mouth, because remember, handshape 5 also represents just plain vowels with no consonants. So ear. But if we were to cue the word here with our handshape 3, with the sound here, we're going to start with handshape 3 at the mouth. Here. Or if we're talking about searing a steak, we're going to also start with handshape 3 for the S sound. Sear. And then we also have some words that start with a consonant associated with handshape 5, like fear and tear. So those are some ear words that we can cue now. And now we're going to work on putting all of it together. We're going to focus on just this blue section of the chart for right now. So how would you cue he? He. And he is going to be written in Q notation as 3 for handshape 3 M for the mouth placement. He. And now the word reef is reef. And that cue notation is 3M, 5S for the F sound. Reef. Now the word see. See. See and he have the same cue notation because they have the same cues. Her. 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 Now for a made-up word, rrr. Rrr is going to be cued as rrr. And just a little warning for you all, we will be cueing a lot of nonsense in these courses because when we start learning cued speech, we can't cue a lot of the things that we want to say. So I have a lot of nonsense words and a lot of nonsense sentences just for practice in cueing those sounds. And now lastly in the blue section, we have sir. Sir. We can cue so many more words now. With that hand shape 3, our mouth placement, and our hand shape 5, we have so many words we can cue. So let's cue all of these words together. Meats is going to be broken up into me-ts. So me-ts. Meats. Treats is going to start at the side because the t doesn't have a vowel with it. So we're going to break the word treats up into t, re, ts, t, re, ts. So with meats, we're starting at the mouth. Meats. But with treats, we're going to start at the side. Treats. Reefs. 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 Hurt. Hurt. Feast. 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 Seam. See. Seam. Meets again, but this is a homophone of our first word meets, so it's cued the same way. Meets. Free. 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 Surf. 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 Steam. Steam. Seam again a homophone. Seam. First. First. Surfed. Surfed has two things I want you to pay attention to. The first is the sound that we make for that particular ed ending. So when I say surfed, that sounds like a T. Surfed. So we're going to cue it as a T. Surfed. So that's going to be cued as surf. But how do I show that there's a second T sound after that sound? Surfed. That's called a flick. A flick is used when we have a change in phoneme or a change in the sound without a change in the hand shape. So if I cue surf, it would look like that. And then to show that t sound for the ed ending, I'm going to move my hand a 1/4 inch forward and then a 1/4 inch back to show that there is a change in that phoneme. A lot of cuers will also do a bit of a shake. Not really a 1/4 inch forward movement, but a little tiny bit of a shake to show that flick. So that would look like this. Surfed. 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 Surfed has a flick. You can now cue your first word that has a flick in it. The next word is ear. Ear. How would you cue steer? Steer. We know how to cue tear. We cued it a couple slides ago. Tear is an ear word starting with a t. So we're going to cue it with hand shape 5, t, tear, tear. But now if you add that s to the beginning, steer, how would you cue that? You're going to cue it starting at the side for the s that doesn't have a vowel right after it. Steer, steer. What about street? Street. 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 What about reef? Reef. Another made-up word, I think it's a last name. Hearst. Hearst. Seat. Seat. Heats. 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 Tree. 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 Stir. Stir. Hurts. Hurts. Seats. Seats. And then finally we have heat. Heat. If you want more practice with these words, you can go through and cue them all again, and then go back and watch as I cue them again to see if you got them correct. The last thing that we're going to do in this lesson is talk about vowel reductions and liaisons. So to start with liaisons, liaisons are just a way of saying that when we speak, we often run our consonants into the next vowel of the next word. And when we do that in spoken English, we should also be doing that in cued speech. So for example, we don't often say, look at it. We say, look at it. So we kind of adjust where those consonants and vowel boundaries are between words, and we don't always say it where we would see a space on a paper. So we don't say, look at it. We say, look at it. The next example, leave it alone. We don't normally say leave it alone. We say leave it alone. So when we cue it, we're going to cue it the same way. So I'm going to cue leave it alone, and then I'm going to cue leave it alone. So if I were to break it up with spaces like we do on a paper, it would be leave it alone. But if I cue it with liaisons, it's going to be leave it alone. So you can see how it's faster to cue it that way. And it's really important if you have the aspiration to become a cued language transliterator to be able to cue quickly. That is not my goal for this course. This course is not with the aim of you becoming a transliterator. That would require a lot more practice on your own time. This course is just to learn cued speech. So I'm not focused on your speed right now. I'm only focused on your accuracy. So we won't be able to cue any liaisons together for a little bit until you learn a few more cues. But I just wanted you to have a look at this so that you become more aware of what we sound like when we speak English. And the second thing I wanted to talk about was vowel reductions. So vowel reductions are when we don't really say the full vowel in casual speech. And there are two words that you can't cue yet if you say them perfectly, or how one would say them if they were speaking for a speech or for a more formal presentation or something like that. But you can cue them with a vowel reduction. And those two words are or and for. And when we're speaking, we don't really say or for. Often we say and fur. So, for example, if I say, do you want this or that? I didn't just say, do you want this or that? I said, do you want this or that? And you can cue this, that. And then the same thing goes for the word for. Not the number 4. I believe we mostly say for when we're saying the number 4 in American English, but we can say fur. I say fur all the time. For what? For what? I don't say for what. I may say that sometimes, and I may say for sometimes, depending on what other words are around it, or who I'm talking to, or the register that I'm using when I'm speaking. But a lot of the time, we may just say for what? So I wanted you to be aware of that too, because you may have to cue or for your first cue in. And that's going to be it for this video. And in our next video, we're going to learn the chin placement, which is the sounds oo, ah, and eh. And we'll get more into that next time. So thanks for watching, and I hope you watch the next video.